for this breakout session, The Matrix and Me, A Brave New Hello World, presented by Karisa Fernandez from IQ Inc. If you have questions for Karisa, feel free to add them to the chat throughout the session, and we'll address at the end during Q&A. Before Karisa gets started, I'd like to welcome Ryan Ernst, also from our event sponsor, IQ Inc., to the virtual stage to get things started. So Ryan, the stage is all yours.
Hey everybody, if you haven't met me before, my name is Ryan Ernst. I'm a solutions architect / engineering manager at IQ Inc. Back in January, our operations director, Jean Puchek, passed me Karisa's resume. Jean essentially told me that she didn't know where Karisa would fit on our team, but that I had to talk to her because we had to give her a position somehow. And so Jean doesn't do this often. So when she did, I was like beyond excited. So I interviewed Karisa. We talked about Death Corn Maze, Rihanna, and her love of Google Sheets. And we ended up hiring Karisa into our innovation center as a software engineer, where basically she's been kind of learning from a fire hose ever since. And so I have to say, I'm so thankful to have Karisa on our team. She's just so driven to learn and grow, and it just makes her an absolute blast to work with. So in the 10 months I've had the privilege of working with Karisa, she has grown so much as a software engineer, and I hope you all can take away a little bit from her presentation of her passion and drive, because it is contagious. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Karisa.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, I told him not to be too nice because I got a little emotional, but we'll do our best to hold it together here. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. I am truly excited to share my story with you. The last time I attended TechFest was to see a colleague and dear friend present about how I ruined his Slack bot and some processes that ensured his day-to-day success. I still feel bad about it, but in my defense, those Rihanna emojis were necessary. And for those of you that know me, yes, Rihanna has been mentioned now twice in the first 2 minutes of this presentation, but they're now an integral part of that company's culture. So anyways, we've come a long way. I know this is virtual, so I just wanted to apologize in advance if my jokes are lame. I obviously won't be able to read the room as easily as I could if I was disappointing you all in the flesh. But being the woman in the screen is kind of my thing now, as we'll talk about. So thanks again for being here virtually with me. Like Ryan said, my name is Karisa Fernandez, and I've been coding for 10.5 months. You heard that right. My first Hello World was literally less than a year ago, and now I'm talking with you about it. It was a brave one though. It's been absolutely wild. This time last year, I was in business and sales. It was a little bit of a blur to say the least. So let's begin our journey into the matrix together, shall we? So let me go ahead and click. Okay. So, okay, we're fine. We're gonna figure it out together. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. Just a reminder as well, this is a story, how I transitioned through careers, and lots of analogies and pictures coming your way. It's really for anyone, not just engineers and technical humans. It's really for, I guess, anyone. What I'm trying to say is if you're expecting an extremely technical talk, now is your chance to run. No hard feelings at all. Okay. It looks like I kept most of you here. No turning back now. We are going to start with a good old how did I get here story, aka the origin story, the switch and how 2020 played a part, my bootcamp experience, what life is currently like as a junior dev, and what I've learned, which is, struggles I face as a newbie, some struggles I'm sure that we all face as developers. We're all passengers on that struggle bus some days. What I wish I knew and how we can be successful as a unit. Followed by a delightful Q&A, I'm sure. So, how did I get here? Like I mentioned, 10.5 months. It's been quite a whirlwind. And speaking of whirlwinds, I was pretty excited for that segue, guys. I'd love to see a virtual show of hands of those of you who ended up in their childhood or even college career choice. Okay, well, we got a little variety here. I see you. So it all started with an aptitude test. That's right, people, we're going way back. I was what you would call impressionable. So everything was cool to me. I wanted to do all the jobs. And, my aptitude test, it showed I had quite a span. There was a chef, a truck driver, there was a teacher, all realistic options, I thought to myself. But wait, there was another option. Boom, professional athlete, easy, super attainable, right? I mean, that paired with my dad's origin story, and that's not this talk, but my father is from Lima, Peru, and he played professional soccer in South America. So, I mean, if he could do it, attainable. Bank everything on becoming a professional athlete. But in a crazy turn of events, I did not become a professional athlete. I know, I'm just as shocked as you are. I did play though, all throughout high school. And she's fine, by the way. She went on to do great things. She's actually going to be in the presentation again later. We won the school's first ever WPIAL championship. I know it's weird we're talking about soccer at a tech conference, but I learned so much from playing team sports. I actually cannot express how much soccer has given me. It is a huge part of why I'm here talking with you today. Growing up, we didn't have a ton of money, and that was the way I was making it to school, with a college scholarship. But I started playing for soccer clubs in what was considered late. I am a serial late bloomer. So I spent a lot of extra hours playing soccer with my dad outside of scheduled practices, which were already multiple times a week, and then games on the weekends. So around 6 nights a week. It became pretty obvious by early 7th, 8th grade that even though I had become one of the better ones in my area, that, you know, my options were narrowed down due to financial situations. But luckily, yay, I got a college scholarship and I went to college. All those late nights out on the field when other kids my age were maybe going to the movies or having what was considered actual fun, it paid off, and I regret nothing. That lesson and work ethic shaped me. My junior year, I was captain with 3 other seniors, and we went to the NCAA tournament for the first time. And for the second time my senior year, I landed in the record books and was ranked nationally for different stats multiple times. That photo actually in the bottom right is right after the last goal I ever scored that meant anything. We were losing in the second half, and I scored to tie the game. Hope we can still advance. Unfortunately, double overtime, no, can't make that up. No goals, and we went on to lose in PKs, and that was it. Career over. I don't talk about it often, but it was such a credible ride, and it was an amazing experience. More importantly, both at a team level and individually. The lessons I learned about drive, leadership, inclusivity, composure, and never giving up throughout my soccer career helped play a part in where I am today, and I'm so thankful. Those soft skills. But no matter how you spin it, I still failed. No pro soccer career, no Olympics, chapter over. Okay. Oh, I don't know how that got there, but I mean, you see the resemblance, right? Anyways, more importantly, we have our first timeline split. Timelines. So I coached. And it was also a great experience. I was using my degree in sports. I was doing the thing. On top of that, I was still actively playing. To get out of college and basically start coaching. Whoa. Okay, sorry about that. To get out of college and basically start coaching didn't happen often, but I was on my way. With any luck at all, I would be Ted Lasso in no time. Unfortunately, it was short-lived. Remember this. This is yet another pivotal moment in the story, and probably the most literal part that we'll talk about. It was about to go down. It all started with this, a yellow Gatorade, and this, a teriyaki beef jerky steak stick, and last but most definitely not least, loans. Ah, yes. With my lack of financial knowledge and still needing money to supplement my scholarship, loans. Woof. What a dream-killing trifecta. I was coaching at the summer camps in Erie and on my way to a game. Being on the run, I grabbed the Karisa Special, a drink, typically an energy drink, or the superior yellow Gatorade. We stand lemon lime Gatorade forever, do not at me, and a teriyaki beef steak stick. I went with the Gatorade because it was a hotter Saturday morning and the coaches had gone out the night before, which had become routine. And who was I to break tradition? So I was in need of electrolytes more than caffeine. It was going to be a great day. I was already making great decisions. Grabbed the beef steak stick and wouldn't you know it was on sale, 2 for 1. Don't mind if I do. I went to checkout, swiped my card, and it didn't work. That's right, people, declined. The cashier, who kind of knew me at this point, and I tried again, but declined again. I was so embarrassed and confused. I awkwardly apologized and said I would put the stuff back, but they barely got out the beginning syllables of "don't worry about it," and I was sprinting out that door. So something was wrong, and I had about 2 minutes before I had to leave to make it for game time in 20 minutes, enough to start the car and check my bank account. And I knew on Wednesday I had at least $30 in my account, and that should have lasted me to the end of the month. Alas, an auto bill that I thought I had rescheduled had posted, and bam, not only did I not have the $4 and some change in my account, I was negative $40 in my account. So there's only one thing to do. It's a slight exaggeration, but with my lack of financial education paired with the lack of income I was getting, I saw the writing on the wall. And I cannot stress enough that I had zero financial awareness, and even I saw what was coming. Another failure in the distance. That's right, people. Winter was coming and I was not ready. It was yet again time for another change. So I started reevaluating and decided to move home to Pittsburgh in the beginning of 2014 without a job. So I knew I had some administrative and recruiting skills that I could use to format a resume into something kind of desirable. Again, timelines. I found a small distribution company and started working there doing invoicing and other administrative tasks. I was excited to learn new skills. And of course, trying to spin things positively, I actually tried out and made a semi-pro soccer team in Pittsburgh. Remember her? So my opponent there, she was the organizer. So you can imagine my shock and awe when I made it. We are in a simulation, people. It all comes full circle. Anyways, I never actually played. I moved instead. I found another job and life took me up to Buffalo, New York, where I worked at an incredible company that helped me learn even more about business operations and even the inner workings of construction. There's so many different types of rock, guys, machines, Department of Transportation regulations, OSHA. And a few years later, I decided that as much as I liked the snow belt, it was time to go home. Again, I reevaluated my skills and decided I wanted to be somewhere where I could grow and learn technical skills. That's where the world was headed. I didn't want to be left behind, and I loved spreadsheets. That's right. I love spreadsheets, and I still do. I decided to find a job in tech. I found a posting at a startup in Pittsburgh for an office manager. I had no clue what that was, but the job description looked kind of similar. I had a delightful phone screen. They actually had never had an office manager before. And guys, they had a soccer team I could play on. Maybe I'd make friends. So many possibilities. I had another interview after for a similar job I was less excited about, but gotta have options. The interview was only supposed to be an hour or so, and it had gone way over. But not like the, wow, they must love me long. It was like, oh, wow, this is not going well type of long. The construction business I worked for was more manual in some ways, but I believed at the distribution company and at the construction company, they had more difficult systems to learn because they were so not user-friendly. I felt the dream dying, but luckily we've been here before. I was a pro at failing at this point. One of the last things I said was, I know I can learn and I will work harder than anybody. If you just give me a chance, I'll learn how to use any tool or system. Just give me a chance. Then a mix between thinking the interview wasn't going well and the timing for my next interview, I cemented pretty much in my head that I wasn't getting this job with my next move. I actually ended my own interview. I stood up, I said, thank you for your time, but I have to get to my next interview. A brief and very awkward moment followed, and I sprinted out of there faster than whenever I couldn't buy my beef jerky. The parking attendant asked me how it went, and I saw I had an email assuming, the parking attendant asked me how it went, and I went home. It was just like a total blur, and I assumed it was from the next company that I interviewed with. But I got the job. I was in the tech industry. It was happening. I didn't ask how it was real. It was just happening. So the switch. For the next 3 years, I embarked on a journey. I wanted to learn everything and anything. And luckily, I made it clear in my interview that I didn't want to be an office manager forever. It became clear in my time there that I was pretty ambitious. I moved after a year from that first office manager position to a customer success coordinator, from a customer success coordinator to a business development team. Being at a startup, you wear a lot of hats, and getting to build out multiple positions and add to the growing culture of a company is an incredible experience. I had truly irreplaceable moments in those years. I got to start helping the new team I joined with the goal for all of us to become more organized and data-driven. My director always supported me and encouraged me to continue my learning. I credit her and a product manager for really kickstarting my dive into the matrix. They saw something in me, and they introduced me to business magic. I realized how much I like the data-driven approach to things. Also, organization in general is just chef's kiss, you know? Tame the chaos. Also, hours of work with a click of a button. I was ecstatic. Do people know about this? Like, is everyone doing this? Why isn't everyone doing this? I would walk by the engineers' desks and look, but their computers looked like the Matrix to me, just letters and numbers. I couldn't read that language, but I knew I wanted to be a part of that. It was so foreign. So my mentors started introducing me to SQL and R. I was going to get to run the scripts. No big deal, right? I pressed the button that made it go, which led me to start questioning things. Wait, but how does it go? Can I do this myself? Like, what is the button? I started peeling back the layers, and it was the beginning of entering the matrix. I would start to see what was really going on in front of me. The realization that there is no button. Oh, I was all in. And the thoughts of going back to school were in full swing. These skills are so important. Everyone should have these skills or be exposed to them, regardless of whether you're on the business side of things or on the techie side of tech. I wanted that knowledge. This is where the world is going, and it would only make me better at my current job. It was a no-brainer. So at this point, my two mentors were to me as Gandalf was to the Fellowship, leading them into the mines of Moria. I had two masters in their positions, teaching me, supporting me, and believing in me. I was doing the thing again. But unfortunately, we all know what happened in the mines. Foreshadowing. Like any place of work, it faces challenges and changes. Both my mentors left around the same time, and the bandwidth for learning was pretty much non-existent. When something broke, it was broken forever. It just wasn't a priority, and that's how it goes. And try as I might, I wanted to be like Gandalf, like my mentors, but unfortunately, we know that wasn't included on my aptitude test. Did not include wizard, so the magic slipped away. Shortly after, I ended up leaving too. It was yet another timeline shift. But I had more of a career develop this time, and I was able to find another exciting opportunity at a Pittsburgh-based company. I would be doing a similar job, business, digital marketing, partnership management, exciting times. But again, we all know what happened in the mines of Moria. The dwarves dug too greedily and too deep. 2020, everyone, we've made it. Durin's Bane, or what it actually is in this analogy, a global pandemic. Did not see that coming. What a time to change jobs. Where you worked for 3 years, where all your friends worked, where you were comfortable. The date was March 20th, 2020, and it was my last day at my company. A pandemic, a national shutdown in my last week of work at the place where I grew so much professionally and personally. It obviously is small in the grand scheme of things that are happening in the world, but it was the new virtual reality that we all faced. My coworkers had become my best friends, and I was saying goodbye to them through a screen. Surreal doesn't do it justice. And I'm sure we all had our reactions to the shutdown. As an extrovert who thrives off of bringing people together, it was a new, different type of nightmare for me. We had all talked about the epic send-off happy hour we were going to have, and that it wasn't goodbye, but see you later. But this was just a different type of depressing. Everything was through a screen. These people were like family, and it was such an emotional exit. I was lucky enough to be part of something that grew from 30 people to over 100 people when I left. And that company is still crushing it, by the way. Shout out to you guys here. Thanks for coming. So I started with my new company on the 25th of March, 5 days later. And starting a new job is already terrifying, let alone during a pandemic. And change hasn't always been kind to me, as we know. And this time I was starting a new job as the woman in the screen. but I was determined to bring the same energy in hopes that I would be able to replicate my experience at previous jobs. Time to bring it. So I went for it. And you know, it was different. The pressure was different. And how could it not be? My job focused even more on the sales side of things. And obviously in those times, everything was so uncertain, as we all heard a million times. I did take over some fulfillment tracking and I had spreadsheets. It wasn't central to my job though. Again, I was lucky enough to feel supported by teammates and my manager, but there was an itch now, a business magic itch. Where was the magic? And I had great conversations with my manager who was supportive of me getting into more data analytics and technical things in the future. About 5.5 months, the pandemic was still raging and I had been sent for an entire loop. I had no clue what to do. Sales, account management, business, digital marketing. It was something I was good at. And as an extrovert, you almost feel like pushed into that arena. I felt I was failing again, flailing a little bit too. I felt lost. I had conversations with people who had gone to boot camps and engineers. I was kind of poking the bear. It was in front of me day in and day out because the new company that I worked for also worked directly with boot camps. And I saw those stats. I mean, Academy Pittsburgh has an 80% job placement rate. Those are good odds. So one night, thank you for that, whoever that was. That just gave me some confidence. I appreciate that. So one night I thought, maybe I'll just apply. I probably won't get in. I wrote my essay on my favorite spreadsheet formula, the VLOOKUP. If you don't know what it is, you got to learn it. And it will change your life. And wouldn't you know it, I got in. And it was a risky decision I had to make, to leap from my career I formed or try to find a job in a career that I'm just going to learn about for 3 months. I had no idea during a pandemic, but I made a decision. I was on to my next adventure and the timeline shifted again. So I just want to take a minute here. Did I have any other computer education experience? So other than running those scripts and some SQL training, I really didn't have any hands-on experience. I just pressed a button. I did have an experience with a job in tech though. So I'd been around business terminology, but to make it absolutely clear, I had no idea what technical terms were like an array or a dictionary. But I did know what things like project management were and other tech environment things. And not to brag, but I know you've all seen my transitions when I'm not accidentally clicking too much in these slides. I could make a sick Word document back in the day. Oh yeah. I mean, come on guys. Pretty impressive stuff. I really just wanted to show you what I'm working with here. And this is really how I got into the Academy. I'm just kidding. And I mean, you guys thought this wasn't going to be technical. Anyways, my main point is I was as green as golf course grass. So boot camp, or as I like to call it sometimes, brain camp. I attended Academy Pittsburgh for their 3-month program, 40 hours a week, full stack development. It was such an amazing experience, but it was also completely brain melting for me. When was the last time you learned something completely new from scratch? To learn to think logically was not something that I even factored in. I didn't know how to think like that. I had to rewire my brain. And it was so expansive. There was so much to learn. Doubts came quick, and I wonder if I made a mistake. I'm the teammate, the friend, the cheerleader. This isn't scoring goals or assisting anymore. This is coding. I'm the kid, in my 2nd grade teacher's words. Karisa isn't the smartest, but she sure has a lot of heart. Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. I found my 2nd grade report card a few years back, and it's fine. I'm clearly over it. Doesn't affect me in my day-to-day at all. It was so scary, though. What if I don't have a place in what I was calling actual tech? But hey, you know, I have heart. So onward into the matrix we went. All right, here's some action shots for you guys. Also, my pal, sorry, Haven, I didn't let you know that you were going to be in this. But as you can see, there's a new Karisa special. Start the day with a Red Bull, then chase it down with coffee until you fall asleep. But don't worry, the Red Bull is sugar-free and we sub that in for the beef steak, so way healthier. So it was an incredible experience. My classmates were amazing. They were truly what I considered to be the type of people cut out for this. I have to be honest, I wasn't used to being in the middle of the pack. And if there's one thing I learned, I wanted to be the best, but coding will humble you. Some more foreshadowing. It had been a while since I started something from zero. So I stayed at my computer after hours to try to catch up to these brainiacs. I was determined that if I just work hard enough, it will come. It'll be like everything else I've done. After all, at one point, I was the worst soccer player on my team, in danger of being cut. But I put in that extra time and eventually it came. Same concept, different arena. I can do this. Unfortunately, it was not the same. I was struggling. There was so much. I would understand one concept, and then there was another concept. How many are there? How do people keep this all straight in their head? It was a struggle to stay positive, which is usually my jam. I was able to remain positive, though, during class. I knew I was good at supporting my classmates, so that sparked joy. I had a great time, despite being completely remote, too. We all made it work, but I still felt so behind. And no matter what I did, I felt like I was constantly asking questions. I was one of the voices in class you heard a lot. Could you please repeat that again, but like slower and in a different way? Please, maybe like step by step. What do you mean there's something in it? It really felt like I had somehow slipped to being the worst in the class. And you're probably wondering, Karisa, that shouldn't matter. Focus on yourself. And I hear you and you're right, and I'm working on it. But social validation and relating to humans is something that drives me. I love people. And I was convinced my brain and its inability to learn what an array or a variable was getting in the way. Again, what do you mean it starts at a zero index and values can be stored in there? What do you mean in? I was stumbling on basic principles and needed to understand these building blocks before moving on to the next brain breaker. Anyways, it all came to a head in a one-on-one with one of my teachers, John, who is a Morpheus, a true master of the matrix. I was really down. Everyone else was better than me, and they all think so much better. In class earlier that day, I was the only one who did a problem differently from those who shared, and mine was so short. Everybody else's had more complex code. Mine was simple, theirs was pretty. I called my brain simple and expressed the sentiment. And of course, what is a people pleaser expressing a negative emotion without an unnecessary apology? So I apologized for my brain and the way I thought about things. And he said, hey, don't apologize for your brain or for having a simple solution. It doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think that's something everyone who is learning how to code needs to hear. There's so many different ways to do things in this arena. Sure, certain things can be more efficient, but sometimes simple is good too. A breakthrough moment. And there were lots of those. The supportive instructions and instructors and conversations with TAs, they were irreplaceable in their value. I, once again, was lucky for the people around me. Classmates, teachers, I was surrounded with people supporting me and helping me to learn. And I'll say it, people who I considered way smarter and way more experienced in logical thinking. I am self-aware enough to admit that. And luckily, I have zero ego because in learning, there's really not room for one. I just wished I had more to offer than support and positivity. I slowly started gaining confidence and things got a little better. I even made a rage roguelike game called Death Corn Maze. One of the coolest feelings was seeing a working end product. What a rush. And I understood. It was starting to click. Graduation came and it was time for interview day. So I like interviews. I like talking to people. I like to overshare in a genuine and relatable way. I like hearing about people's lives and what they do. They were fun to me. And guess what? You guessed it. I have been told I have a great personality. So interview day is structured like speed dating, 10 to 15 minutes with companies. So you have to make it count. I had a plan and I was ready to wow. One thing I forgot to mention, and you may have picked up on this, just because I liked interviewing doesn't mean I'm good at it. I like tangents. We're on one right now. So it was my turn and I was second for a company named IQ Inc. Luckily, I had prepared. IQ is a software development company and a consulting firm. They worked on custom software development solutions and projects for different clients. It sounded super interesting, ready to wow. But as expected, pleasantries and talking about the pandemic. Right after that, somehow we got onto the subject of the new puppy I was going to get and how I was traveling to pick her up the day after graduation. And she shared about her dog. And yeah, time flew by and I blinked, and before you know it, we had 1 whole minute left. And dog talk is not code talk. The literal last minute, we talked about my previous business experience. And I mentioned that I by far was not the best coder in my class and that my classmates were actually the phenomenal ones. How's that for self-advocacy? And it ended. Massive fail. My second interview did go way better, and I was happy to get a second interview that next week. The interview was literally on graduation day. I just got my diploma and had to log into the Zoom, where I was met with a light live coding exercise. I was caught off guard. I did not see that coming. Luckily, we had mock live coding practice a few days before. I bombed that, but still, you know, had to stay confident. Practice is practice. There were 2 problems. I got ready to type and whoosh, my brain flushed, a brain toilet. In the last 3 months, I could have been in cabinetry school. So my personality was all I had, and she was not home. I wasn't making words. Well, I need to get them out of there, but only while there are objects, and then give it to the computer, you know? What I needed to do was loop to extract values from a dictionary if they were not null and return the values as an array. So the rest is an absolute mess. I invented what I like to refer to as the 6 loop. It was not a loop, but a mashup of variables, arrays, brackets, semicolons, loop soup, trademark. Have you ever bombed an interview so bad that you invented a new language? Well, I'm not trying to brag, but book coming to a Barnes & Noble near you. You know, and I was really hoping they would appreciate the innovation. I mean, it was creative, but the fact that we spent the whole time on the one problem that was referred to as light and easy, woof, it was not great. I couldn't make it out of that Zoom faster. I cried hard. And right after graduation, it was quite a hit to the self-esteem, absolute carnage. I went back into my class's Zoom where some people were hanging out and some other people had just had a similar experience, and there were other tears. So I hate interviews. It was a dagger to the heart, absolutely soul crushing, but I knew I had to move forward. I had failed before, but this was different. I had risked it all. And during the pandemic, what was I thinking? But I would go back to the books and keep trying, because that's what I do. I keep going. Developers and engineers at different levels were very supportive, truly. It happens to the best of us, they told me. But I started to think to myself, wait a second, was that hazing? Like, what's happening here? I knew they were trying to be supportive, but that they are the best of us, I'm the worst of us. If that happens to the best of us, I don't stand a chance. What I was experiencing was negativity, which was not a normal emotion I allowed myself to get involved with. I was the support to people, so I had to pull it together. No time to feel sorry for myself. Toxic positivity only. Just kidding. Well, sort of. I got an email one day and I felt quite an initial mix of emotions. I got an interview with IQ Inc. Remember, that's who I shared my puppy story with? I was confused, shocked, horrified because I was not ready to get hurt again. It was a lot of emotions, but what did I have to lose? I could fail again. Well, it can't get worse. They might tell me no, but I have to keep trying. I mean, I failed pretty much the whole way here, and it's been an incredible ride so far. Let's go for it. And in the emails to follow, we exchanged photos of our dogs. Off to a great start. And more importantly, can't have low self-confidence if you have no self-confidence. That's right. I was at my lowest point of confidence in my own intelligence. I knew no matter how much studying, I would most likely blank again and self-destruct. Who knows what I would create this time? So I decided to go into the interview with as much blatant honesty and gusto I had. Maybe if my energy and drive could translate through the screen, I'd have a chance. 3 interviews on separate days followed. I had a great time in each of those 3 interviews. I got to talk to an engineering manager, the CEO, the COO, and director of operations. They were all fantastic, but there was one common theme. There weren't really any junior dev positions open at the time. I was expecting nothing and just enjoyed each and every conversation, getting less and less nervous. I actually told my horror interview story of the 6 loop and how I didn't feel I was the strongest coder in my class again. They were so nice. I wanted to work there, but there really weren't any positions. Even when they asked for references, I refused to get my hopes up. They were just being nice. So you will understand my shock and awe when they called and offered me a job. I thought it has to be for business, but it was a software engineer position. I fell off the couch. Actually, I accidentally called them back when I was trying to call somebody else to tell them the news. But anyways, I accepted immediately. So we made it. Junior dev life. I started my current job as a software engineer in January this year. And just to recap the timeline, 2014, I was a soccer coach. 2017, I was an office manager. Last year, I was in business for the majority of 2020. And, then I went to school. What a whirlwind. So for the junior devs here and those who work from them, especially those devs with a non-traditional background, you've probably seen and heard us struggle a little bit with the real world scope of projects. We aren't doing garden boxes anymore, guys, with an if else about whether you'll plant corn or carrots. No, things move much faster. Things are different when you get deeper into the matrix. Now there's vocab, new languages we've never seen, and we don't know what we don't know. I mean, React, State, Python and their relative imports, Docker. I really think you could just spend your whole life becoming a master of containerization. WSL, what do you mean it's not on my computer? I mean, come on. There are just some things that are mental gymnastics, as my manager likes to call them. When you are working with a junior dev, remember, we are not the same. All right, so as you can tell, I love an analogy. And the great news is I'm starting to see the matrix for what it is, which is so cool. It's not a button at all. There's so much more to the matrix. I'm always excited to be doing what I'm doing. Sometimes I get discouraged and frustrated. And sometimes, well, a lot of the time, I feel like I'm moving too slowly. And I just want to do a good job. I just had this conversation with my manager the other day. Also, Ryan, you are awesome. If we were in person, I would ask for a standing ovation. Thank you for all that you do. So I asked Ryan, how do you keep this all in your head? And he said, it's like a chef who can cook without a recipe. They've done it so much, they just know. And man, I need a recipe. I need all the recipes. I know Stack Overflow and documentation helps everyone, but even small checks that you might do as a senior developer in your day saves you a trip to the Google Wilds. We as juniors have to do that stuff. We have to think about everything. Other analogies include, but are not limited to, layers of cake for building a structure for applications, the matrix for this code world we all live in, and putting $1 in the jar, which I will explain. It's the constant mistakes for me. Well, it's the learning constantly, but it can be extremely difficult. Remember, you senior devs are Morpheuses. The amount of times I've stared at my computer for far too long and Ryan has looked and asked a simple question or found an out of place semicolon or bracket hurts my soul. To me, that was just a superpower senior devs had, having the uncanny ability to fix things like that. Apparently, it's just a dev thing. I also learned the syntax monster is inevitable. It's both a comforting and painful thing because of its inevitability. When I hear, welcome to being a software engineer, when something like this happens, that means I made it. But that also means it will just get better with time. It's never going to go away. An imaginary dollar goes into the imaginary jar for everything I do that is categorized as one of those mistakes. They'll be less frequent as time goes on, though. Gotta tell you, though, that imaginary vacation I could take would be epic. So let's talk dumb questions. Remember how I mentioned I was asking a lot of questions in school? Well, that's not a bad thing. This is for you junior devs or literally anyone. Ask the question, get it off your chest, But it's okay to struggle in silence, trying to figure it out on your own, but there is a limit. And that whole saying there's no such thing as dumb question, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I ask dumb questions. I ask all types of questions. Sometimes I even have to repeat them. The saying should be, no matter what your question is, it is worth asking. And it doesn't make you any less smart for clarifying and making sure you understand what's going on around you. Something I wish I knew way back in school, way back, a whole 10 and a half months ago. And if you're asking a teammate or a coworker, they want you to succeed too, right? Well, I would hope so. So they would want you to ask, right, senior devs out there? Gosh, you guys rock. Thanks for all that you do. Struggles. Oh, yes. We all know what these is. That is my cat in the top right-hand corner. I censored that for you with that caption. So a struggle with this industry, I think, is in general, it is a little more insular and it is a little bit easier to fall into self-doubt, that imposter syndrome. I've learned that as a junior dev, my feelings of not being good enough are rather constant. The little voice is constantly reminding me that on what I would consider my best day, I know there's somebody faster who will always know more and be light years ahead of me. There's so much pressure to get things done fast and correct in this world. I apologize constantly for being less than. But again, I have an incredible manager who is reassuring, and we are both trusting in this process. I have been lucky enough to talk to all levels of engineers, managers, and just humans about these feelings. We all have them. If you don't, I'll let you take over from here. Please tell me your secret. As a junior dev, we are constantly learning, but as much as that is a struggle in some ways, it's also the beauty of the work that we all do. We are, all of us, learning constantly, just at different levels. Another struggle I'll mention is, again, we don't know what we don't know as junior devs. For example, learning to ask the right question in the Google Wilds and to select the right answer. They go hand in hand. It's hard enough to learn how to ask the right question, and then you finally might get it, and it's like getting dressed in the dark. You finally ask the right question. And, you know, you pick an answer that could kind of work, but there's most likely a better answer. It's like thinking you grabbed a shirt in the dark, but really it's shorts and there's no head hole and you're kind of stuck with your arms in the leg holes. That skill takes time. Also, the technical jargon and vocabulary. I know with my non-traditional background, the struggle is so real. You may not be able to tell because of how technical this talk is, but it really is difficult for me. So an argument and a parameter, those are the same thing. Yeah, the penguin. No, not Linux, the penguin thing. Oh, that is Linux? Well, okay, we'll turn it on. Or wait, it says it's a promise. What the heck is that? Wait, asynchronous. That's different than an anonymous function though. Okay, maybe I didn't plug it in, or I'll turn it off and on again. All right, to the docs I go. There's a lot we have to learn. So there are a lot of things I wish I knew before I started on this journey, and I'm no Jedi yet. Just a young Padawan who's learned some things during this journey. In all seriousness though, there are a lot of things I wish I knew before this journey began. If you are thinking about doing this, or you know someone who wants to get into tech, you should all be encouraging them. Or maybe you yourself are in a learning stage and you can relate. This is for you. Know what type of learner you are. I wish I spent more time getting to know this. I know when I find a video that explains a concept, I feel safe. Tutorials and actually working directly through something one-on-one is really helpful for me too. And of course, asking those questions and explaining them back is really important. Talk to people who are in the industry now extensively. Refer them to Academy Pittsburgh. They would love to talk to you. Current engineers, both junior and senior, kind of get that how it started versus how it's going. Ask them what they looked into when they started their journey into the matrix. I lightly did this, but I wish I did it more. A little bit more prep before boot camp, maybe some light reading. Live coding interviews. It's not so much the concepts or the studying. It's another skill that takes time and practice. Typing, let alone coding in front of somebody, is nerve-wracking. Do not beat yourself up. Mock interviews, friends, even talking through a Code Wars problem on your own is helpful. Rubber duck it out. The ramp up. And what I mean by this is you're not going to be able to simulate a real world job until you're in a real world job. I learned so much in Academy. They gave me the building blocks, a foundation to build off of. And at IQ, I didn't think it was possible, but I've learned at least 10x just in these past, since January. Again, you don't know what you don't know. Whether it's an error in real time you haven't seen, or maybe you're debugging someone else's code. From Python to React projects, the things I work on are constantly evolving, and you're always adapting. It's an entirely different experience when you're in the actual matrix. Ask the questions. And soft skills, well, believe it or not, they are what makes the matrix go round, and we'll get into more of that. So in closing, how can we be successful as a unit? How can we stop the imposter syndrome sentinels, the agents causing a toxic work environment, ensuring that we as a community are creating an accessible and healthy environment for all levels of devs, even helping pave the way for people to become engineers who didn't grow up thinking it was in the cards for them. Perhaps they were a daughter of an immigrant who knew the only way they were going to college was with a scholarship paired with financially crippling loans. That was oddly specific. I do have some ideas. This right here is how we thanked each other in class on graduation day. I get a little emotional looking at it, so I'm not going to stare at it too much. If you read these, the majority aren't about actual coding. In the beginning of my journey, I was so nervous my soft skills were going to go by the wayside or hold me back, and the tech skills were going to be first and foremost. I have been successful in this career transition, though, wildly because I was surrounded by people smarter than me, people who wanted me to succeed, and people who care about the whole me, as a human being. The truth is, even where I work now, people would rather work with a supportive, driven, empathetic person than the most impressive coder who's kind of a jerk. They hired me on my background and who I was. They got to know me. If you're a hiring manager and you think you found someone special that could be a great teammate and with some coaching, a great engineer, invest in them. What is that whole human about? You do have that power. Another soft skill-esque way we can be successful is to leave your ego at the door. When I talk about people being smarter than me earlier, that's an ego check. Just because people are smarter, just because people who are more experienced or more advanced in a certain arena, that doesn't mean you aren't smart or good at other things, but it does mean you can learn from them. And there are things they can learn from you. I am the soft skill poster child. I can definitely help, and I have helped in my life professionally at work. For example, culture, processes of being more empathetic, for example, to acknowledge the human in all of us. So drop that ego, actively listen and learn. This goes for all levels of coding and all other arenas, but especially if you're a junior in any arena, whether it's coding or how to speak to another human, you most definitely have to listen, my friends. We have so much to learn. Work together as a team. Don't forget your semicolons. Turn on your autosave and install the prettier extension if you haven't yet. As you can see, this is a recap of what we've talked about in this presentation. Support each other, listen to each other, check your ego at the door, uplift each other when there's the opportunity to, and learn from one another. And I really believe if we continue to do these things, we will continue to have more and more people enter tech from all arenas. And anything is possible these days, guys. Pro athlete status, finally. Thank you all so much for your time and listening to my experience. I hope it can help you to encourage someone who's thinking of taking the plunge, or to help you in your day-to-day team environment, or you to continue learning yourself. For you junior devs grinding out there and those who support them, keep that up. You're doing great. So I think it's time for Q&A. I don't know how much time we have because I haven't been staring at the clock here. Oh, whoops.
You did great, Karisa. We are at 11:48, meaning we have 12 minutes to have fun together if needed. If anyone has questions for Karisa, please add them to the chat right now.
Okay, I'm gonna get, sorry, so my computer where I see you guys is clearly on this screen.
Okay. And Karisa, I don't know if you can see the chat right now, but we have some wonderful commentary coming in. And from Matthew Kirby, going to boot camp next month, and you cleared up a lot of anxiousness and questions. His question is, what helped you decide on a boot camp versus a university route? And how prepared did you feel for your first professional coding job following graduation to be a contributing member of the job?
Wow, that's a great question. And congratulations, I'm really excited for you to go to boot camp. So when I was deciding to go to boot camp, I did think about school. But I talked to people, and I actually knew people that attended Academy Pittsburgh that had gotten coding jobs. So it was kind of right in front of me. And I took the time to, which I'm sure you did too, really search the stats. They're so impressive. And honestly, it was more financially accessible for me to attend Academy Pittsburgh. And they have a great ISA program. And it just made more sense for me financially, and in the world that we were in at the time. The pandemic also had a lot to do with that.
Thank you for that. I'm going to wait for some more questions if they're coming in, but I'm going to take this time while you're all still here to mention this has been day 1 of TechFest. It went really well for everyone. I hope you had a great time. We hope to see you back here for day 2 tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. with 3 different breakout sessions. You can review everything in Sched. And now that my little spiel is over, any other questions coming in, we can address those right now. We do have about 10 minutes left. Not gonna lie though, Karisa, a lot of them are just saying, way to go, loved it, I laughed, I cried.
I'm trying to catch up in the chat right now. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, not seeing any more questions come in. Oh, we have a question from Justin up here that I did miss. Thank you for the reminder. Let's find it. Justin says, given all the programming languages out there and how more appear all the time, how do you keep up?
Wow. So there are some late nights where, I am watching videos. I am constantly learning during the day. Again, Ryan, I'm going to say your name again. I am lucky enough to have a manager that if I start to feel overwhelmed, I have switched back and forth between Python and React quite a bit. And React is mental gymnastics. And it can be difficult, but it's also knowing your limit. Don't burn yourself out. And I think I have somebody who reminds me of that constantly. I have a fear of missing work because I'm afraid if I miss a day, it'll all leave my head, that brain toilet problem we talked about. But it truly is your own. I think something cool about coding, it's you against yourself. Like the ball is really in your court. You have to know your limit, but you also have to know how you learn. And for me, that's watching videos, that's doing extra tutorials and code wars to, if I'm not really understanding something, there's a ton of resources where you can go into the Google Wild, ask a question, and there's probably somebody who's done it. CodePen, all these other examples that you can look at and you can try to do it yourself. So that's kind of how I keep myself going.
Thank you for that. We have 2 more questions, maybe 3. The first one is, what is the most interesting programming thing you've learned after bootcamp?
My gosh. So there has been a ton, but I think the most interesting thing I've learned, oh my gosh, it's probably again, not technical, but just how much there is in the day-to-day at an actual job in tech. And, maybe some people here, you've been in tech for a long time and you're used to this stuff, but the computer problems you can have, they can just destroy your whole day. The yak shaving, we talked about that in Academy quite a bit. You might spend the majority of your time fixing something on your computer, and before you know it, it's 10:30. That's not necessarily the most interesting thing, but it's something that was unexpected.
Thank you. Just a reminder, we do have 7 minutes left. I have 2 questions left for you. The first one is, what was it like to onboard at a new company in a new industry during a pandemic? And how did you get to know company culture and meet people?
Oh, Elsa. Hi, Elsa. For those of you who don't know, this is one of my Gandalfs. So it was terrifying. I have to be honest. And the company that I worked for, they were all extremely nice people. And for me, onboarding virtually, I'm an in-person person. Like now, it's interesting. I do enjoy working from home quite a bit. But when it comes to getting to know someone, I was terrified of onboarding and not being able to do what I had done my entire life, which was, let people get to know me. I'll win them over eventually, one of those things. And the company culture with IQ, I work directly with Ryan, and actually I just met people in person a couple weeks ago, which was really crazy. And same with the people at Academy. I think that we all adapted somehow to the virtual world, and things really did start coming through the screen. It's like we all were so scared of it in the beginning, and now because we're so used to it, it almost feels more natural in a way. Now it's weird sometimes when I'm in front of a real human. I don't know how to end a conversation. There's no leave button. So it's actually kind of more comforting at this point. But in the beginning, I was absolutely terrified.
Thank you for that. You're keeping us laughing, which I enjoy. Our last question, Karisa, for you today is, speaking of burnout, do you have any advice for folks who already work full-time but want to make a career change into tech?
So I am pretty close with somebody who I experienced burnout, and the advice that I gave at that point, because I mean, it's a feeling. You feel tired, you're looking at your computer, and you just need to know when to walk away. But also what's important is talking to the people around you. Like, I, again, feel very lucky for my manager, and I've always felt lucky for the people who I have worked for, that I felt comfortable expressing those feelings. That's toxic if you can't look at your manager or somebody at your work and say, I just don't feel right. I feel like I can't focus. I feel like I am losing it in whatever way. So make sure that you're talking to people around you just in general and staying aware of your own feelings. If you are working full time and you're trying to leave a job, though, maybe don't lead with that with your manager. But I would say, if you're in a job or a career, kind of what I did at my previous company, Niche, with my Gandalfs, and even at my last company, I was also very open with my manager about my passions. Their job is to kind of grow those and validate them. So if you're looking to get into more tech and you don't necessarily want to leave your full-time job, is there an opportunity for that? And if there's not, maybe try to work something out. And I know that sounds kind of pie in the sky, but that's just my experience and how I did it. In terms of burnout in that situation, just know your limits. If it's like an every night thing that you feel like you have to do and you're starting to literally you'll feel something. It's going to feel tired. It's going to feel like you don't really want to stare at anything, like that I just can't feeling. Recognize that immediately and go for a walk. Get away from your computer. It'll be there when you come back. But that's just a little bit of what my experience. I hope it's applicable.
Perfect. And Karisa, we do have 2 minutes left. We got one more question, so this will be our last one from Harry Cassidy. He asks, as someone who has been trying to learn Python the last 3 years, I often fall off the training and never finish the course. Any advice to keep motivated with learning it?
So I don't know if you're extroverted or introverted, but for me, and as you guys know, I love a coach. That player coach mentality. I love having a teammate. Is there somebody that could help you stay accountable? I know, again, I'm just going to keep mentioning my Gandalfs and Morpheuses over here. I told Elsa that I really wanted to get into tech. And she was like, okay, well, this is just going to become part of your day then. And I was like, oh man, okay. They're going to hold you to that. There's somebody that, can do the course with you, or is there something you could even set up for yourself for that accountability if you are a more insular person? Or you can email me after this, and I promise I'll be on you like white on rice.
Thank you so much, Karisa. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We had some really wonderful questions. We will see you back here for day 2 tomorrow of TechFest starting at 9 a.m. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.